take a seat. Right, good evening everybody. Just a gentle reminder to colleagues to put their phones on silent. Now, I welcome you to this extraordinary meeting of the full council here at Tottenham Green Leisure Centre, and there are people here in the gallery. You're all very welcome. This meeting is also being recorded by the council for subsequent broadcast via the council's internet site. Please note this meeting may be filmed by anybody attending the meeting using any communication method. Although we ask members of the public recording, filming or reporting on the meeting not to include the public seating areas, members of the public attending this meeting should be aware that we cannot guarantee that you will not be filmed or recorded by others attending the meeting. All right. By entering the meeting room and using the public seating area, you're all consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings. As chair of this meeting, I have the discretion to terminate or suspend filming or recording if, in my opinion, continuation of the filming, recording or reporting would disrupt or prejudice the proceedings, infringe the rights of any individual or may lead to the breach of a legal obligation by the council. Before starting the items, please can the Democratic Services Officer confirm with our sound and audio engineers that there are no issues with the streaming of this meeting and that it is available to the public.
Chair, just to confirm we are live.
And loud. Attendees in the meeting can view the papers sent by the Democratic Services Manager, and there, I think, were hard copies available at the table. Members watching online, please keep your microphones off, although I don't think you can even contribute, so that's okay. Now, there's a couple of things I want to say before we begin. Firstly, I'd like to welcome Andy Donald to his first meeting as Interim Chief Executive. I'm sure he'll enjoy working with all of us as we work together to make Haringey a better place, so you're very welcome, Andy. Welcome. Thank you, folks. You know, it's cold in here. A bit of energy and enthusiasm is always important. Maybe you'll do better next time. On this point, I'd like to congratulate Councillor Weston and Councillor Cowell on the birth of their son, Iestyn, on Valentine's Day. Alison and I met him on Sunday, and he is gorgeous. I feel sure that he may be watching this evening. I believe he may be. So, Iestyn, this is the start of, I suspect, many council meetings your parents, or at least your mother, will be attending. We better give our colleagues a round of applause for the birth of their first child. I'd also like to congratulate Councillor Chandwani and her new husband, who she described as Mr. Chandwani on Twitter. They were married today, and I'm sure we send them all our best wishes for a very happy life together. Now, when colleagues wish to catch my eye to speak, please stand up and only press the microphone once. Item 2, to receive apologies for absence. Chief Executive.
Mr. Mayor, we have apologies for absence from Councillor Adamu, Councillor Weston, Councillor Ibrahim, Councillor Chandwani, Councillor Bull, Councillor Peacock, Councillor Morris, Councillor Ogihor, Councillor Opoku, Councillor Sheno, Councillor Williams, and apologies for lateness from Councillor Hearn, Councillor Ajay, Councillor White, and Councillor Tucker.
Thank you. Any further apologies? Hold on, leave the opposition.
Thanks. Lateness from Councillor Hare as well.
Thank you, and Councillor Cowell also sent apologies. Now, colleagues will have, I suspect, like all of us, been very saddened by the death of the woman on Friday as a result of a tree falling on Muswell Hill Road, and it seems appropriate, as this is the first opportunity that Council has met since her tragic death, that we pause for a minute to reflect on her life and show her respect. So will colleagues please rise for a minute's silence. Thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. Under the Council's agreed Code of Conduct, members are required to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or prejudicial interest as defined by the Code at any meeting, and may not participate in any discussion or vote on the matter and must withdraw from the meeting room. Details of the requirement to make a declaration of interest are shown on your printed summons at item 5. Should any member need to make any such declaration, you should do so now by clearly stating the reasons and the nature of the interest. Members with a sensitive interest as defined in the Code must declare that they have a disclosable interest, but the details of that interest need not be disclosed. Are there any colleagues wishing to declare an interest? No? Okay. Item 4, monitoring officer.
Mr. Mayor, I have no matters to report on.
Thank you very much. Deputations, Chief Executive.
Mr. Mayor, we have not received any deputations for this meeting.
Thank you. Agenda item 6, motions. Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I suspect we all agree that faith and trust in politicians and governments is probably at an all-time low. It's hardly been a golden period over the last decade for politics nationally or globally. Now, I believe that whilst we may have probably many differences in this room, one thing that unites the majority of us is that we chose to stand to become councillors and ultimately become elected because we are decent people who fundamentally want to make a positive difference. And I think of local authority staff as well, many of which choose that career path because they too want to make a positive difference. But the problem is, humans are fallible. They're easily corrupted. Perhaps they're corrupted by the minority that didn't have the same decent intentions, misled, misinformed, perhaps without even realizing that it's happening to them. Or perhaps they're corrupted by opportunities that positions of authority bring them. I'm sure many will think that we are here this evening only because of the recent LGO report, or perhaps because of the police investigation. But the reality is that that is not the case. They are just the tip of an ever-growing iceberg in Haringey. We are here because corruption, misdirection, and misinformation have absolutely no place in a functioning democracy. And if they exist in Haringey Council, then we must root them out from wherever they may be. That is why this council needs a truly independent external investigation with the full remit and tools required to do any job that it wishes. This is not about specific individuals inside or outside of this room. This is about a culture that has been going on for years at a council that is about to embark on the greatest level of borrowing and property deals in its history. It's about investigating a council that chose to employ a chief operating officer despite them being found guilty of financial misconduct by the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, and them holding one of the most senior and important positions in this council for 5 years. A council who not long after that COO left was forced to change its HR policies after giving its former head of Regen an absurd £340,000 exit package as they moved on. It's about investigating a council who appoints a lead cabinet member for finance who was previously suspended for misconduct regarding a property deal that led to losses of £1.5 million to the council. It's about investigating a council who have chosen to hide and internalise an investigation into overpaying for their own offices by £12 million. Questions are being asked regarding decisions made relating to the Cranwood development, quite rightly. But any investigation must go much further than this one development. Cranwood, Alex House, Apex House, Fortismere, Gourley Triangle, Coppets Road, Red House, Forster Road, Hornsey Town Hall, Shaftesbury Road, Fortismere, Compton Crescent. These all should be forensically looked at and investigated properly by an external auditor. Links between agents as well as developers that run across different properties and developments going back a minimum of 10 years must be looked at. Links between staff and ex-staff of Haringey Council and private individuals and businesses involved in these deals must be looked at. A root and branch look at the council's property and finance departments must be commenced immediately to identify any possible malpractice or worse, as well as an investigation into the advice given to those departments in relation to the property deals, such as from the council's legal teams. Mr. Mayor, I can safely say that we have no faith in this council's management and decision-making regarding property and development. So I ask the leader of the council and all members to leave no stone unturned in the investigation of the council that we all represent to ensure that corruption, misinformation and mismanagement does not exist at the heart of Haringey.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer, I believe you're seconding. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very happy to second this very serious motion. Selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty and leadership, the Nolan principles. They apply to each and every one of us here. Those 7 principles should be the bedrock of everything we do, how we work together, the decisions we make and how we scrutinise those. And if we follow those principles, our residents should have the trust and confidence that we're working with them, for them and not for our own personal gain. Each time Labour changes its leader here in Haringey, we are told the new administration will be different. We heard it when Claire Cober took over in the aftermath of the horrific Baby P scandal, when Councillor Ejiofor led the momentum coup against her, and when Councillor Amit regained control for her faction last year. Throughout that time, though, the council has been beset by the same problems. And that's a very obvious political divide between Labour councillors. It becomes more of a talking point than any so-called radical policies you might have. And in the meantime, council bureaucracy steps in to run the borough with very little consistent political oversight. Now, I welcome the leader's agreement with us that a full external investigation into the council's dealings is the only way forward, and the fact that she's planning to invite the leader of the opposition to discuss the scope. However, I note that the Labour amendment makes our motion rather more vague. So I hope the offer to the leader of the opposition is a genuine one and not an opportunity for you to present to him your plan as a fait accompli in a charade of cost party working to gain support for a whitewash. Sadly, given Labour's track record, I have my doubts. The investigation must be a genuine look into the council's dealings over the long term, not simply an opportunity for the leadership to pillory Councillor Ejiofor in yet another round of Labour infighting. But questions over Haringey's integrity go back much further than 2018. Many of the current administration, including the leader, member for planning and the member for finance, have been cabinet members in the past. They cannot run from that record. Now, it may well be that property deals that have happened on their watch were just incompetent, badly implemented or bad policy, but ultimately above board. But the administration now needs to face up to that. Councillor Ejiofor is just a convenient fall guy, but the rot in Haringey has gone on for far longer, and it goes far deeper than his failed leadership. And at a time when this council is spending so much public money on the Civic Centre and High Road West, it would actually be really good to have the confidence to know that such large amounts of money were being spent on the right things, especially when we're continually told how little money there is. And finally, I note Councillor Ahmet states that she was unaware of the LGO investigation, and actually I don't disbelieve her, but it isn't a defence. Leadership is one of those 7 principles, and I would ask Councillor Ahmet and all of you to question your own actions, the actions that you have been part of that led to such a catastrophic failure to disclose something as important as this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's an amendment that's been proposed in the name of the leader, and I call on the leader to move her amendment. Councillor Ahmet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our amendments to this motion reflect the seriousness with which we take this issue and clearly shows that the resolutions the Liberal Democrat group is requesting are actions I have taken. I informed councillors on the 14th of February that I had instructed the council to do the following. Write a letter of apology to Mr. X and compensate him as the LGO report suggests. Ensure the council is fully cooperating with the Metropolitan Police investigation. Review arrangements for how property decisions are taken to ensure a robust, transparent and accountable process. And arrange an independent external investigation into historical arrangements for property transactions. The Local Government Association has already been in touch with me to offer their expertise and guidance, and we will be working closely with them over the course of the investigations. As members can see, we are treating this issue with the seriousness it deserves. I did recently speak with the Leader of the Opposition to inform him that the Council is taking all of the above measures and invited the Liberal Democrat Group Leader to be part of setting the parameters of the external investigation. I was disappointed for the second time in many months to discover that the Liberal Democrat Group have still insisted on calling a meeting to discuss an out-of-date motion. The fact that this motion is out of date makes this meeting political theatre. It's a political distraction from the real issues that our residents are facing right now and the work we are doing to build a stronger, fairer and greener borough. Our residents are in the midst of a cost of living crisis. They are facing soaring energy bills, upcoming national insurance increases and high inflation, which is effectively cutting their wages. We are likely to see more people losing their homes. 1 million adults in the UK went an entire day without food last month. Yet here we are, using precious council time and resources to discuss a motion that I have already acted on. What will our residents think of this? As leader of the council, I'm concentrating on doing all we can in our powers to address the cost of living crisis. Haringey Here to Help and Haringey Support Fund are supporting residents in financial hardship, with help from everything from food, utility bills and childcare costs to supporting residents at risk of homelessness. To tackle the vast number of people on our housing waiting list, we are committed to building 3,000 council homes by 2031 to help address the housing crisis. And our innovative programmes such as Olive Morris Court are giving shelter to those facing homelessness and street sleeping. We are continuing to support small business in our borough, and I'm proud we won the Best All-Round Small Business Friendly Borough Award from London Councils last week. Yesterday, I was on the front line talking to council employees who were clearing the debris from our streets and parks after the devastating impact of Storm Eunice. As councillors, we have a responsibility to concentrate all of our energy on what really matters to our residents. That is what my cabinet and I are ruthlessly focused on. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Well within your 5 minutes. Very good. Councillor Gordon, I believe you're seconding the amendment.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just want to formally second the motion.
Right.
The amendment, sorry.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll now move to the debate, and colleagues will of course know that each contribution has up to 3 minutes, but the more pithy you are, the more colleagues we can get in. So, Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As has already been discussed, trust in politics is broken. Trust in politicians is low. And on the doorsteps in Haringey, and I'm sure all of you, regularly hear how the Tories have let us down with their parties in number 10 in recent months, while people cannot attend the funerals of their loved ones. But on the doorsteps in Haringey, there's been another story, and it isn't just the Tories that have let local people down. People recently have made comments such as, the council is corrupt. The councillors are doing deals with property developers. Is it true that the Met Police are investigating the council? And as a councillor on a doorstep, I have to say that some of these things are true, or could be true. Before the 2018 council elections, local residents were upset that Haringey Labour was selling off its land and property as part of the Haringey development vehicle. People were outraged. And as a result, the Liberal Democrats won more councillors as some people changed their vote in anger. But still, most of Haringey voted for Labour councillors. It will be different, they said. This is a different Labour, they said. Well, it is not. And in fact, in many cases, it is the same people. The current council leader has served in the cabinet of both Councillor Cober and Councillor Ejiofor. From Love Lane and the Peacock Estate to Red House, the Civic Centre to Alexandra House, Ward's Corner to Cranwood, local people and businesses have been let down or misled, or both, time and again. And while Councillor Ahmed says this is a political distraction and cites the cost of living and energy increases among the many things that her cabinet should be focusing on, the council has been busy paying over £2 million for a property valued at about £800,000, or splashing out £23 million on Alexandra House, which was valued at £10 million, while crying poverty from austerity. This latest debacle, the Cranwood development, has attracted a police investigation, hardly what any council wants or needs. And there are still answers awaited and outcomes on reports on both Alexandra House and 141 Station Road. The governance and procedures need to be closely investigated, not just around Cranwood, but around multiple historic property deals. Council officers need to be empowered and confident that they can make decisions and that the governance is clear and supports their actions. Decisions need to be available for scrutiny, and there need to be notes available and supplied upon request. I could go on. For residents to have trust in the decisions affecting their lives, there needs to be transparency and honesty. And whatever this investigation uncovers, it will take years to rebuild that broken trust. Fraud and corruption are extremely serious allegations. And I cannot see how the Liberal Democrats can vote in favour of this watered-down Labour amendment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to speak in favour of the amendment as the chair of the Corporate Committee. Part of the committee's remit is to ensure the proper administration of financial affairs, the management of risk, the effectiveness of anti-fraud measures, and overseeing the governance arrangements. And the Council has a code of corporate governance which sets out key principles, such as making sure we have the information needed to review value for money, being rigorous and transparent about how decisions are taken, ensuring the proper professional advice is available well in advance of decision making, having robust scrutiny, and being open and transparent about decisions. And we must ensure that those principles apply to all decisions. We cannot learn from mistakes if we don't have the information about what went wrong. So I welcome the amendment's commitment to looking at historical arrangements for property transactions, as well as the recent Cranwood case. One that has concerned the Corporate Committee is the decision in 2019 not to purchase Alexandra House, which proved an expensive decision, as the council subsequently paid a lot more to buy it 9 months later. A report into that decision was commissioned from Mazars and considered by the Corporate Committee. The report acknowledged that governance arrangements had been weak, but it left a lot of unanswered questions. And back in August, I proposed that there should be an independent review into Alexandra House, but that didn't happen. But if we pass this amendment, I hope that will happen, because there is legitimate public interest in pursuing this. We cannot provide the necessary assurances about decision-making processes without probing how those decisions were taken. Now, the Cabinet adopted a new acquisitions and disposals policy for land and property back in February 2020, and an audit of how that is working will be reported to the Corporate Committee shortly. But that alone will not answer the concerns about what went wrong before. Therefore, we must have an independent external investigation, and I urge members to support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. The Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And before I start, I can say with great certainty, Councillor Ahmed, that it's not a council meeting which shocks residents. It's the actions of your colleagues over the last 4 years. That is what shocks them. Mr. Mayor, this is a meeting which I'm sure none of us on either side of the chamber ever expected to have. The fact that the police are investigating fraud in the council is incredibly serious and not something any of us will relish. Haringey has historically thrown away millions in taxpayers' money, from the harebrained scheme to sell Ali Pali for £1 to the decision to sell off assets on the cheap to pay for the hated HDB. But I personally had always assumed that this was mere incompetence, the complacent decision-making of a party elite who has been in power for far too long. However, it seems we must now entertain other possibilities. In terms of debacles like the purchase of Alexandra House, it isn't clear if Labour politicians were making decisions at all, or if their tiresome internal psychodrama meant that the council bureaucracy was left to its own devices. What many on the other side do not seem to appreciate is that scrutiny, including by the opposition, is an important part of the decision-making process. If we were able to spot and campaign on a bad decision, then sure, maybe you feel a bit embarrassed, but it leads to better outcomes for residents. And let's face it, if you change your mind, then you can often try and take credit for that anyway. I do cautiously welcome the fact that the leadership seems to be taking both the LGO report into the failings at Cranwood and the police's investigation into fraud seriously, and the fact that Councillor Ahmed has agreed to meet with the leader of the opposition about this. But what is really important is that we don't just narrowly look into the cover-up at Cranwood, when the council misled its scrutiny committee and failed to provide the LGO with evidence relating to its massive overpayment for Property B. This investigation must also include other deals such as Red House, a decision which half of the current cabinet called in due to a lack of due diligence, or sell-offs we have been alerted to which happened before 2018 under the watch of councillors who have since returned to cabinet. At a time when we are embarking on unprecedented borrowing and capital spending, we must ensure that nothing is swept under the carpet. We must restore confidence in council processes with a thorough, truly independent investigation.
Thank you. Councillor Ejiofor. You want to speak?
Thank you, Chair. I thought I would get the opportunity to speak last so that every one of the single name checks that I get, I might be able to respond to. But if you're going to call me now, I just would like to ask for maybe a few extra minutes. This might be the last opportunity I get to address this chamber. And of course, we're not in the chamber here and now. Quite frankly, I'm surprised that I was named in the local government ombudsman report. It's a decision that appears to go beyond their own guidelines. The Ombudsman has been unwilling to explain what the specific public interest was in naming me, and I'm still having conversations to try to get the answer to that. The Ombudsman published a report into a complaint by a resident that the council had been slow to deal with the potential purchase of 106, known as Property A in the report. This had caused considerable stress. Consequently, I understand that there has been a concern about how this particular issue has been reported in the media. But that's because this particular issue has been conflated with another issue. There are two separate issues. There's the Ombudsman inquiry into the decision not to buy Property A in March 2020. And there's the reporting of a potential criminal inquiry into the eventual purchase in summer 2019 of Property B. And that followed the Cabinet decision in autumn 2018. These are two separate issues, two separate decisions. And there's been no suggestion from the police or the council that I'm in any way connected to what the police are investigating. It's only my political opponents who keep dog whistling my name and talking about Cranwood and seeking to bring these two completely separate issues into the same paragraph. The Ombudsman report contains no findings of malfeasance or criminality, but takes issue with an on-balance decision which, in its own report in paragraphs 30 and 32, it says that that decision I was entitled to make, though I didn't make it at that time, but it says that I could have done had I so wished. But the complaint from the resident goes back to the communication with the council around 2018. And at the time of the contact, I think you'll all remember, the principal issue that the council was dealing with was extricating itself from the HDV. Officers were not certain of the future of that site, but the council has accepted that its response was delayed. From that time in summer 2018, Mr. X, or was it Mr. B, signed a conditional sale agreement with a developer. The fact is, he no longer owns that property, and he was not able to dispose of it as he wished. It was the developer who was negotiating with the council, and it was the developer who set unreasonable terms for that sale. And quite frankly, going back to the report itself, the conclusion of the Ombudsman report in paragraph 37 bears no relationship with reality for three specific reasons. As preparations for the development proceeded, it became clear that the Cranwood site was not one contiguous site, but two separated sites, separated by sewers and water mains running through them, running in front of the terraces. Thames Water made clear that it was no longer possible to develop the site as originally proposed, and this made the inclusion of the terraces into the development much more difficult and much less appealing. From the time of the site visit in early 2020, officers have been tasked with looking at alternative development options that did not involve building over the sewers. Secondly, it was agreed policy to ballot residents on demolitions, and despite a number of other conversations with freeholders, it became clear to me that it was now also important to engage with the tenants. And the tenants had collected 5,000 signatures on a petition at that time. And it was subsequent to this engagement that prompted the decision which was the subject of the complaint. And that decision was to review where we were with that proposal. And thirdly, any decision to purchase Property A, which belongs to Mr. B or Mr. X, would have to be defended on its own merits. That meant the council must have had a clear expectation that it was essential to the development. Buying Mr. B's house just because we bought his neighbour's house could not be justified, because it was clear by March 2020 that we did not mean...
1 second, Councillor Edgeworth, 1 second. You've already had 4.5 minutes.
I'm sorry, I've got...
Please, excuse me, let me just finish. I've given you an extra 9 seconds. I'll allow you another 30, but in the interest of time and the fact that this debate item can only be half an hour long, I will have to close you there, but you've had an extra 9 seconds already.
I appreciate your forbearance, Mr. Mayor. The outcome desired by Mr. X, namely that the council should knock down council homes to purchase a property as an overvalue, was never going to be agreed once the development became unviable. Even if I were to accept the Ombudsman's view that the way that the decision was made was flawed, which incidentally I do not, the fact is the decision would have been the same whenever it was made and will be the same whenever it is reviewed. I'd like to say this might be the last time that I speak to this chamber. I'd like to say that it's been an honour to be a Haringey councillor. It's been an honour to have led this council. There are many friends and colleagues here who I know will be sad to see me go. I dare say there's one or two who'll be happy to see me go, but that's another thing for a different question. I'd like to thank everybody for their friendship who's been here. And for there's one final thing that I will say, which my mum passed it on to me, which was Ua na agutari, agutari. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will just gently say that as you'll know from your diary, there are 2 full council meetings before Purdah, Council Edgeworth. So there's opportunity for you to come back and speak again. Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This local government and social care ombudsman report raises significant problems around transparency, accountability and lack of oversight. The council is the steward of public assets and makes important spending decisions which will impact our residents. This LGO report into the Cranwood development raises significant concerns around fundamental areas such as decision making. With decision making should come accountability. However, as indicated in the LGO report, decisions taken by Councillor Ejiofor as the then leader were noted as flawed. However, an even bigger concern is there was no demonstration of proper evaluation over this decision, no briefing papers or discussions, so no oversight of an individual's decision. What's really worrying though is the cover-up. We know that the council lobbied to have Councillor Ejiofor's name removed from the report, that they refused to release documentation relating to the acquisition of Property B to the LGO, and that an inaccurate picture of events regarding the decision around the row of terrace houses was presented to the Scrutiny Committee. This highlights a lack of accountability around decision making, with scrutiny and analysis of any decisions treated as an annoyance rather than as a key part of decision making that they should be. We as a council must have confidence that the use of public money and the future borrowing that council is embarking on is undertaken in a transparent way. But what does this mean in reality? How do we have confidence in decision taking if inaccurate pictures of decisions are presented to our own scrutiny committee and documents aren't even shared with the Ombudsman? How do we have confidence when the LGO report noted there was no demonstration of proper evaluation and weighing up, no briefing papers or discussions? How do we have confidence if there's no accountability around decision making, no proper scrutiny and analysis of any decision? The recognition that decisions taken over this development is to be independently examined is welcomed. However, we as the opposition have indicated in our motion there are other sites that we feel need further scrutiny. We must ensure that in broadening the remit of the independent body's investigation, or a really important opportunity to understand the problems and address them may now be missed. Supporting our motion allows for more robust investigation to be undertaken by an independent body. The worry is that the Cranwood development is viewed as an isolated incident. The real concern is that it isn't. This council is looking to embark on an exponential £1.5 billion of capital spend in just 5 years. The public must have confidence in the decision-making process. These decisions must be minuted and open to scrutiny. This council should seriously consider the wisdom of going ahead with its planned capital borrowing and spend, given the lack of confidence we have that robust and transparent procedures are in place. Confidence in this council is at stake. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any Labour members who wish to speak? No? Okay. Right. Leader Opposition.
Mayor, I'm wondering whether I could just make a quick interjection, if that's okay?
I don't think so.
Is there not time?
Okay, 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Mayor.
I will stop you at 30 seconds.
Okay, I find it abhorrent that the Leader of the Council thinks that a public meeting is a distraction. This meeting gives our residents an opportunity to see and hear in public the administration held to account. The failings highlighted by LGO are one of the most serious breaches of public trust the Council can face, and therefore a public discussion is exactly what should start the long road this council has to win back trust. The leader of the council's fear of public scrutiny is a very worrying beginning.
Right. No other speakers? No? The hand, Councillor Bowman? No? Okay, lead the opposition, you can wind up. You have up to 5 minutes. Up to being the operative.
I'm sure I won't use it. Councillor Mitchell mentions the importance.
Sorry, just resume your seat a second, please. For those colleagues who want to know why the leader of opposition is winding up, he is winding up the debate on their. Sorry, hold on. Yes, responding to the debate before we go to the vote on the amendment. Yes, so you keep going. You're confusing me now.
One day we'll have a full council that runs smoothly, won't we?
Well, too many cooks.
Councillor Mitchell mentions the importance of the corporate committee.
Sit down a second. Can you withdraw that, please? Can you get up and withdraw that? That's not acceptable. Please get up and withdraw that. Get up and withdraw it. Microphone on and withdraw. Microphone on, please. Microphone on, please. These meetings will be accessible. Please put your microphone on and withdraw that statement.
I withdraw it.
Thank you. Lead the opposition.
Right. Councillor Mitchell mentions the importance of the corporate committee in regards to interrogating council decision making. So may I ask him why his request in August last year as chair of that corporate committee into a report in Alex House was refused? He's the chair of the council's auditing committee. Do you not see the problem with that? Where's the report into the land on Station Road that had no paper trail, gifted to a musician? Have you requested that as chair of that committee? Has that been presented? I find it so disappointing that on such a serious issue, an issue that poses real questions about the integrity of some of the fundamental operations of this council and the way it has spent and will spend billions of pounds, the Labour group have seen fit to water down their motion into a resolution for a meeting. You call this motion political theatre. Is that what you think this is? Do you realise the seriousness of the matter at hand? You refer to a previous emergency full council that we called. You said at the time that was out of date, as you personally supported our call for a halt and review into the Edmonton incinerator. We proceeded with that full council to get the commitment of the whole council, and what happened? The Labour group voted against a halt and review. We need complete affirmation that this council is committed to an external investigation, regardless of who is the leader of the council in 3 months' time. Our motion resolves to make that firm commitment, and your amendment does not. So if you are happy to commit to an external investigation into the real depths of what might be going on at Haringey Council, why are you so unwilling to commit to our motion? You could have shown your commitment this evening by not submitting an amendment to our motion at all, but instead you chose to remove the commitment of the council. I'm afraid your amendment is a commitment to nothing serious at all, and we will not support that. Regardless of the outcome of the motion tonight, regardless of the outcome of the meeting, I hope you have all heard the words that we have said, and you've all heard the words of residents over the last couple of weeks. I hope you realise the seriousness of what is being raised and asked, and I hope you take action, because all eyes will be on every single one of you restanding in May, for every single one of the £1.5 billion you plan to spend over the next 5 years.
Thank you. We will now... Hello?
Can I, point of order here, just wanted to say that these amendments commit the council to reviewing our property decision arrangements, ensuring that our processes are accountable and robust. This includes a full external investigation. I do not know what the external investigation will find, but we want to leave no stone unturned, and there should be no unanswered questions at the end of this investigation,
Thank
so
you.
that we can not only learn from the outcomes, but also draw a line under this and press ahead confidently with our ambitious house building
Sorry.
programme. And I hope members can
Excuse
support
me.
this amendment.
What? That's very naughty. That's not a point of order. We will now vote on the amendment. If the amendment is agreed to, we will then vote on the motion as amended. So, all those in favour of the amendment? Please don't walk around, vote. Find your seat, Councillor White. I think it's over there somewhere. Pardon? It's over here. There's a vote taking place. Just walk across like that. What number have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 27. All those against the amendment? Eleven. So the amendment is agreed to, 27 to 11. So we'll now move to a vote on the motion as amended. All those in favour? Hand up, please, Councillor Tucker. All those against the motion? 11. The motion as amended is agreed to, which brings us to the end of this evening's business. So thank you very much and good evening.